Let's talk some politics. A brand new Q poll looks at the state of Pennsylvania. And keep in mind, this is the home state of Joe Biden. And look at that. Right now, it's within the margin of error. So they're essentially tied. What's interesting about this, and if you look at the other things they polled people on, Bob Casey, who is the current U.S. Senator, he's a Democrat from Pennsylvania. He is leading Dave McCormick by 6 points. Casey is actually outperforming Joe Biden, and it's the support of the independents who are helping Mr. Casey. Just goes to show you that it is essentially tied at the top of the ticket when it comes to the president.
They also looked at the Republican rivals, and Trump is ahead. Number 2 in that state in Pennsylvania is Ron DeSantis. Number 3 is Nikki Haley. But it's different than that in the state of New Hampshire. When they asked if the Republican primary for president were held today, who would you vote for or toward whom do you lean at this time? Trump, number 1 at 49%. But look at this. Nikki Haley's number 2 now. She's ahead of almost double Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, and Chris Christie has dropped in this latest poll. The Boston Globe, I guess this is the Boston Globe Suffolk University poll, has 500 people. I think it's also important to point out that Ron DeSantis is going all in Iowa. He's moving his entire headquarters to Iowa. So it's going to be tough. I guess he's doing a tactical move. If I win Iowa, I'll close the gap in New Hampshire, because in South Carolina, it doesn't look promising because of look who's in South Carolina. The president's a monster in South Carolina. He's got the governor's endorsement, the former governor's on the ticket, and the very popular senator's on the ticket. So it's interesting strategy, but Trump is still winning by a lot there, and he's still winning in Iowa. Keep in mind, he lost Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia, and Arizona last time, which he won in 2016.
Sure.
Georgia is polling better, Arizona is polling better, and now in Pennsylvania he's polling better.
What's stunning about what is going on in New Hampshire is in January, Ron DeSantis was beating Donald Trump. And now Ron DeSantis has fallen into 3rd place, and Donald Trump way ahead, but Nikki Haley is surging predominantly from her performance in the debates.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about the polls, okay? We got to talk about the polls, okay? It's poll mania, okay? And one of the reasons why we're talking about the polls so much is because Trump is just absolutely dominating the polls. It doesn't matter which poll you look at. For the most part, Trump is dominating, especially when it comes down to the core issues, okay? The economy, inflation, the border, crime, things like that. Trump is he's crushing Biden, right? And of course, the mainstream liberal media is coping with this reality that Trump is crushing Biden, and that it is likely that Trump could win the presidency again. In fact, I believe that if election was held today, that Trump would win. I really do. Okay. And again, the mainstream liberal media is coping with that. And they're going to talk about the latest polls showing Trump crushing Biden across the board. And Joe Scarborough is going to pretend that somehow, some way, Trump is weighing down the Republican Party because he's crushing Biden in the polls. And even in the general election poll that he shows, Trump is within the margin of error of Biden, which means that the polls essentially tied. But they do go on to acknowledge that Biden's pitch for Bidenomics is not working for the American people. The American people aren't fooled by the Democrats and their gaslighting. But apparently Biden wasn't the one that wanted to actually go out here and to talk about Bidenomics, which is a pretty interesting revelation. Take a look.
Well, and we also have very fascinating polls. And Jonathan Lemire, I want to go to you just really briefly on this. There's been one poll after another poll after another poll this week that has shown that the Republicans are just absolutely bashing Democrats when it comes to issues. In fact, Gallup had a poll a few days ago where they reported the largest gap between Republicans and Democrats since they started taking these polls. And despite the fact Republicans have a massive lead, we always go like, well, how could people still go along and Republicans to go along with Donald Trump? Well, I mean, a lot of them aren't, despite the fact that Democrats are minus 20, minus 25, even minus 30 on like polls on who do you trust more to take care of the economy. Both parties are not liked or trusted by 56, 57, 58% of the population. And Joe Biden in the latest poll that's out among likely voters beating Donald Trump by 3 points. It's amazing the advantage Republicans have, or 2 points, the Republicans have going in to this election on the issues. And
yes.
Yet Donald Trump keeps dragging them down.
Yeah, no, they're saddled with this Trump issue. And if they had any other candidate there, I think there'd be real alarm among Democrats and the White House about what these polls are showing. We just ticked through one of that Marquette University poll we just showed there. Yes, the top line shows Trump and Biden. Biden up slightly, but within the margin of error. It's a close race. We know that. But look at this. Republicans over Democrats on issues like inflation, the economy, immigration. These are 25, nearly 30-point margins creating jobs.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Huge numbers. Now, the other way, Democrats, as you might expect, more trusted more on climate change, abortion policy, healthcare, Medicare, and the like. But elections so often, Joe, as you well know, are decided on the economy. And these are big warning signs here. And certainly there has been some other surveys in swing state voters, particularly among suburban voters, who dislike Trump immensely, but still really disapprove of how this White House has handled the economy. And the White House thinks that can change. Yep. They point to some underlying metrics. They say things are getting better. They think that narrative will change come next year. But this is something deeply
come on. Do we really think? Do we think that narrative's going to change?
I'm saying that's
I don't think that narrative's going to change.
I'm not sure.
I don't think so
the
either.
economists, Willie, are still saying that, hey, we may still be headed for a hard landing. The economists are still saying interest rates may continue to go up right now. I mean, the White House, I think they're starting to realize they made a really bad mistake with this Bidenomics rollout, and reportedly Joe Biden was against that. And they went ahead with it anyway. It's not working. You can't convince people the economy's going great when they don't feel like the economy's going great, even though our economy is going a hell of a lot better than any other country's.
Yeah, and the idea that it's just narrative doesn't work for voters either. Why aren't you listening to our story that we're telling you that things are going well? Well, because maybe in my life I think things cost too much is usually the answer you hear. And John, that was the concern when they went with the Bidenomics argument, which was, okay, yeah, there are a lot of good things to talk about in this economy, but when you call it Bidenomics, you now own everything about the economy, and that's what Republicans are using.
Right, and that rebrand hasn't worked at all to this point. And numbers can be what the numbers are, but perception is different, and voters are going to probably cast their ballots based on the perception. And immigration, another issue there that I know Joe hammers on a lot here, as being a real problem for Democrats, and we're seeing that poll reflects it. And now we're seeing a Biden administration doing a about face on a couple of issues about deportation of Venezuelan migrants. There's also construction of Donald Trump's border wall. Now, some of that's because they have to because of a funding issue, but it is a nod that that's a vulnerability too. And if the Republicans had anyone other than Donald Trump at the top of the ticket, there could be real worries. But even with Trump, this is going to be very, very close, and there are warning signs for the White House.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Now, there's so much to break down there, right? Let me start with this right here, okay? Because some of you guys may be wondering. If Trump is questioning Biden across the board on key issues like inflation, the economy, immigration, foreign policy, or whatever, well, why are the polls still so close? Well, the reason why the polls are still so close, and that poll that they showed where they said that Biden was beating Trump, again, it was within the margin of error. He was only beating Trump by about 2 points, and the margin of error was like 4.9 points. So, again, basically, it's statistically tied. Okay, people got to understand that, right, when you are looking at these polls. But the reason why is because Democrat voters, liberals, progressives, quite simply are just illogical, right? They're not logical voters, okay? There is a form of Trump derangement in this country that will lead to people voting against their own best interests because they hate Trump. Okay, I'm not saying that doesn't exist. I'm acknowledging that. However, there are also some issues, like, for example, abortion, where you see that Biden is beating Trump on that issue, that some people will only vote based off that, right? They say, damn the economy, damn crime, damn the border, damn everything else about the country, right? They literally want to send the country to hell in a handbasket, right? And these voters are young, single women, okay? And these young, single women vote in droves over their so-called right to abortion. Okay? So you got to understand that yes, Trump is crushing Biden across the board on a lot of key issues, but we've moved into a time period where the key issues don't matter as much when it comes to some issues like abortion. But in my opinion, there's not that much evidence that Trump is actually weighing down Republicans at the national level versus Biden, because I think, one, it has more to do with voters just being illogical, okay, in regards to how they vote, Democrats specifically. And two, if Trump was really weighing the Republican Party down, then what you would see in the polls is all the other primary candidates beating Biden and Trump not beating Biden. But that's not what you're saying. What you're seeing in most polls is that the only two GOP candidates that are consistently beating Biden in the general election are Nikki Haley and Trump. Everybody else, they're not doing as well as Trump is versus Biden, right? So, when that comes to DeSantis, he's having a tough time beating Biden, which again is fascinating because we were sold this idea, okay, from DeSantis supporters that, well, we should elect DeSantis. We should vote for DeSantis because DeSantis can actually beat Biden in the general election. Again, that has turned out to not be true, okay? But some of them are still holding on to that narrative that is in fact the case, that DeSantis is more electable. Again, regardless of who the candidate is, outside of Trump and Nikki Haley, they're not as electable as Trump. So this idea that Trump is holding down the Republican Party and that, if there was another candidate, they would have a better shot at beating Biden, I'm not sure if that's true. I don't know if that's true. I think what's actually really holding back the Republicans, okay, when it comes to the national vote, it's simply that a lot of these Democrat voters they just don't vote logically, right? They don't vote logically. They vote very emotionally. And again, this is why I'm not a huge fan of democracy, okay? Now, again, do I think that the GOP is doing a great job at trying to get people to understand that when you vote for the GOP, you're voting for something, not just against something? No, they're not doing a good job. Right? Like, for example, on immigration, Biden clearly is in desperation mode. Okay, he's so desperate that he's trying to finish some parts of Trump's so-called racist MAGA wall. Well, why is that? Because he's trying to send a signal that he's doing something about the illegal immigration crisis. Even though, again, they have open border policies, he's trying to signal that, hey, I'm doing something about it. Okay, when he's clearly not, right? He's clearly incompetent. Now, again, this comes as liberal city mayors are melting down and crying about this. And this has become a top issue in this country, right? You have the liberals who voted for this now realizing that, hey, illegal immigration ain't all that good, okay? We should have a lot of MAGA hat-wearing black people in Chicago. Unfortunately, I don't think that they're going to vote in that direction, again, because they're brainwashed, right? But again, like I said, it's not like Republicans have done a good job of marketing their Secure the Border Act, which is legislation that they have passed in the House and they have drafted similar legislation in the Senate. They haven't done a good job of coming out here and saying, look, we have a solution, right? Here is our solution. Here's the Secure the Border Act. And the Biden administration not passing this legislation is what's keeping the border open. He's not doing anything about the problem. Right? And I'm not saying that no Republicans have said that. I'm just saying when it comes to Democrats versus Republicans in regards to how they market legislation, Republicans are just not as good at it. They're not. Again, AOC has children out here talking about the Green New Deal. Okay? Do Republicans have children out here talking about Secure the Border Act, right? Or whatever legislation they have? I'm just saying, there's a stark difference between how Democrats market their solutions versus Republicans, and Republicans really have to fix that problem. I think that's part of the reason why you see that the people generally trust Republicans more on a vast majority of the issues, but the votes just aren't there because I don't think that people really understand the solutions that Republicans are bringing to the table. And that's why I say you can't just be like, well, we're just against Biden. You got to be for something, right? You got to be for something. Okay. I'm so serious about that. Republicans got to get better at that. Now, when it comes to the economy, again, this is where the COPE comes in, right? Where the mainstream liberal media even realizes that Biden can't gaslight people on the economy like they try to gaslight people on every other issue. Again, like the border. Well, I don't believe that the border wall works. So why are you continuing to build a border wall for if you don't believe that building a border wall works, right? Again, it's just clear, obvious gaslighting. Okay, they think that you're stupid. Same thing with Bidenomics. You can't tell people who are paying $700 more per month on average just to live compared to what they were paying before Biden took office. You can't tell these people that the economy is good, okay? You can't piss on their leg and tell them that it's raining. You can't tell these people or people that literally can't afford a house because interest rates are so damn high. But because interest rates are so damn high, people don't want to sell their house because they know they will have to go and buy another house. And most likely they will have to finance the house, which means they will have to take out more debt at a higher interest rate to get a home. So what you're saying is, again, it's very strange, okay? You can't afford a house and nobody's trying to sell their house, okay? Rent is going up. The cost of living is going up. And wages just have not caught up. And you're trying to tell these people who objectively feel poor, okay, that, oh, well, you know, Bidenomics is working. You don't understand. You don't understand. That's just narrative. It's just narrative that it costs more for you to go to the grocery store and to buy eggs and milk and bread. It's just narrative that gas prices are higher. It's just narrative that it costs more to live, right? That you can't buy as much as you used to be able to buy. When you gaslight people like that, turns out that, yeah, your messaging is not going to work. And apparently Biden didn't even approve of that messaging. Biden didn't want to come out here and talk about Bidenomics. That was somebody else. And they decided to do it anyways. Okay, so who's running the country? If Biden didn't want to come out here and gaslight people on the economy and to piss on their leg and tell them it's raining, who had the authority to override him? This man is the president of the United States. I don't understand. Does nobody see a problem with that? I see a problem with that. But again, my point here, guys, is a point I've been trying to make over the last few days, which is that the polls are showing that overwhelmingly voters trust Republicans when it comes to the issues, and Republicans need to step up to the plate and make sure that people understand that Republicans do have solutions to these issues and give the voters something to vote for. Okay? And this is why this next Speaker of the House election is so important, because that's where it starts. The Speaker of the House needs to be a better marketer of Republican legislation and solutions rather than a fundraiser, right? Because that's essentially what the Speaker of the House is. They're a fundraiser. They're the prostitute of the party who can sell themselves the most for money. But that needs to change. And I think that what the Republican Party is willing to do in regards to going all in on pushing the agenda needs to be dictated by what they have the support over. We have the support for the most conservative solutions when it comes to immigration, the most conservative solutions when it comes to the economy, and they need to be pushing that. We need to be coming out here and pushing massive spending cuts and increase border security to the point where, yeah, we should be putting the military at the border. We should be securing the border. We should be finishing the wall. We should be doing mass deportations. These are things that should be at the top of the Republican agenda, and they don't need to be ashamed to come out here and to market their solutions and to market these things to the American people, because the American people are on our side, right? So, again, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.